And welcome back to the Psychedelics, Sacred Medicines, and Purpose free virtual conference. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a business coach helping current and aspiring spiritual entrepreneurs align with their true purpose and grow their business so that you can do what you love, live a life you love, and work on your own terms from anywhere on earth. And today, I'm really happy to be talking with my friend Jocelyn. Hey, Jocelyn.
Hi, Beth. So excited to be a part of your event.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. And so if you don't know Jocelyn Mercado is a visibility and thought leadership coach, guide for visionary entrepreneurs, founder of Sacred Planet, writer, and environmentalist. Her journey of life initially put her on a path to hone her practical, logical side. She started out by earning her MBA and then enjoyed a successful 15-year corporate finance career working for companies like Cadbury and Mercedes-Benz. But then she was thrust into a deep spiritual awakening around the time her first daughter was born in 2010. It was that awakening which turned her life upside down, and from which she emerged with a powerful understanding of how to use her intuition and healing abilities, aspects of herself that she had never had access to before. She dove deeply into earth-based and shamanic practices and studied alongside elders and wisdom keepers. At the same time, she became immersed in studying the powerful world of online entrepreneurship and began creating online events designed to change people's lives. Jocelyn now works with visionaries, revolutionaries, and change makers all around the world, guiding them to break free from everything that has held them back in the past so they can joyfully offer their highest contribution to our collective future and welcome in the abundance that they need to live their fullest life. And Jocelyn's giving you all a free gift. It's called Learning to Fly, a 5-week online course to transcend fear and step into your soul's mission. There's a link in today's email. Be sure to grab that because that is completely aligned with what this whole series is all about, your soul's mission. So Jocelyn, tell everybody, how did you go from corporate finance into your soul's mission? And I totally get it because I started out in corporate and then went through all the deeper level awakenings and opened up a whole new realm. But I would love to hear your path and then, tell a little bit about how you came into shamanism as well.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, thank you first of all for that beautiful introduction and for doing this whole event. It's really fantastic that you're doing this.
Right.
So yes, I as you mentioned in my bio, my awakening really came when my first daughter was born. And I had been just on the fast track in corporate. Everything seemed great, checking all the boxes, and you know how it is. So then when my daughter was born, I suddenly found myself in very, very deep postpartum depression. And I just remember holding my baby in my arms and looking down at her and thinking, what kind of a world am I creating for her? What kind of a future is she going to have? And how am I contributing to that? And it just completely turned my world upside down because everything I had done up till then was just basically, I'd gone to school, gotten a good job, got my MBA, all the things that people tell you to do. But it wasn't from my heart. None of it was coming from my heart. And so after some time in the, dark waters of the dark night of the soul, I emerged from that and I realized I needed to figure out what was the answer to these big questions? What am I doing here? What kind of world am I wanting to create for my daughter? And so I started reading everything I could on every world religion and tradition and different type of spirituality. And what really stood out for me more than anything else was ancient wisdom and indigenous wisdom. Mm-hmm. And so that's what really put me on the path. And soon after that, I started a regular shamanic journeying practice. I just happened to have this amazing book that's called the Co-Creation Handbook by Elida Birch fall into my hands. And it's basically an introduction to shamanic journeying. And I found that when I tried these journeys, I went very, very deep, very quickly, and reached a very visionary place. And I was quite surprised by that. This is not something that I had ever learned anything about, right? So of course, then over the years since then, I found elders to study with and had some really incredible experiences around the journeying and then things manifesting into physical reality. We've had these experiences, I'm sure everybody listening, where it's you can't even believe that this has happened, but it's because it was pointing me on my path, toward this shamanic path and toward this, toward indigenous wisdom. So that's kind of how it all happened in a nutshell.
I love it. And I really love that we're going to talk about this as a medicine because you know, in the end, a lot of the speakers in the series actually talk about other ways to access altered states of consciousness that doesn't involve taking medicine, that doesn't involve, you know, as I say, blowing your brains out with psychedelics, but that it's already in us in so many ways, and there's so many other ways to access it.
Yes.
Now, really quickly, just before we go into that a little, can you tell people a little bit more about how then Sacred Planet came about? Because I really love what you've done with that and how that's taken off and what that's all about.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so this journey, that's quite a circuitous story as well, but this journey led me to the Pachamama Alliance. I don't know if you have anyone connected with that.
I was trying to get Lynn on this series. So if you know her, please tell her to come on.
Okay, yes. And so I blogged for them for a year. I got connected with the Pachamama Alliance, and I had the amazing opportunity to blog for them. And I learned so much and got connected in so much more with the, you know, the rainforest energy and the, you know, all that they are about and the way that they are preserving the traditional lands in the rainforest. And so learned so much. And from there came the inspiration to start Sacred Planet. So it was certainly part of the visionary experiences with my journeying, and also came out of so much that I learned from working with the Pachamama Alliance. So it was this idea, and the, you know, the name of the business was so clear. It had to be Sacred Planet. There was like never any question about that. And at first it was really clear that I was supposed to work with people to help them find their purpose. And certainly, you know, as you and I were talking about a little bit before the interview, like we've got to step into our purpose. The earth and the cosmos are trying to communicate with us and tell us our purpose and get us on that path. So that was important at the beginning for my business. And the way that it has evolved, very interestingly, because I have the business and finance background, is that people who came to me were, you know, definitely wanting to start a business, definitely wanting the business insights, entrepreneurial insights. And so that's how it has evolved. So Sacred Planet is very much all about finding your purpose and then making it happen in a really big way and launching your business into the world. So yeah,
that's what I'm passionate about, because I'm very much on board with you. I'm like, I do believe it's not just like, oh, let's find purpose because, you know, we want to feel more meaning, but I really feel like it's beyond us. It's so beyond us. It's the earth, it's spirit, we're being called, and it's already in us. It's the remembering of our purpose. But I'm very much a proponent of, then you have to take action, because in order to create a change, transformed planet, we all need to get into action. It's you know, I almost look at it as a form of spiritual activism in a way, because you know, it's like you might know your purpose, but sit back in your career that's making you miserable because it feels safe, or because it's, I don't know, providing, you know, the lifestyle you want, and maybe you're scared or whatever it is. But we're going to talk more about that. So, you know, I'd like to hear a little bit about how you accessed this through shamanic journeying and how others can, because I've actually experienced it as well. Through, you know, again, I've made jokes. I'm like, we don't need the medicines. We don't need the psychedelics. You know, they're very nice. They're here for, you know, I see them as part of the journey, but, you know, everything is already there. Everything's already available in all of these, you know, with indigenous, you know, practices and wisdoms. So tell people, you know, how did you use this, and how do you use this with clients, or how can one use it to tap into their purpose or listen and get messages like the name of their business? It's amazing.
Right. Yes. So yes, this is so important. And, you know, what's really important to know about shamanic journeying is that when we listen to a drumbeat or we listen to a rattle, which is how we sink into the journey, it changes our brainwave state, right? So we go from an alpha or a beta state, which is kind of normal waking consciousness, into a theta brainwave state. And this is a trance state. It is a light dreaming state, right? It's not the deep sleep of the delta brainwave state, but it is the theta brainwave state. So it's really important to know that this is a visionary state that we're going into. It is, you know, the same state we're in when we're receiving a dream, you know, that we remember at nighttime. And to really allow yourself to sink into that. Because this is the first thing that happens for a lot of people. They'll listen to a drum beat, or listen to a rattle, or you can even do this through listening to music. It's really beautiful to do, to journey in that way. But be so worried that, oh, I'm making this all up in my head, or this is just coming from my imagination. It's not really connected to anything else. And we start to doubt ourselves. So it's really important, I find, first of all, to just know that as you're listening to that drumbeat and as you feel yourself sinking downward into this other state of being, to really trust that and to really know that whatever shows up for you, whether it is something that you see, visionary, whether it's something you hear, some people even smell or taste instead of seeing and hearing, right? To be really, really open to whatever comes to you, because that's what you're meant to experience. So some people, you might not see anything. It might be just total blackness, total silence, but a knowing comes in, right? Some information, and you don't even know where it's coming from. So we've got to really trust that. That's the critical, most important step in beginning on a practice like this.
I love it. I'm laughing because this has happened to me in so many different ways, right? I've gotten, what I call the downloads, right? Like the visions, the information, the knowing, the information that's coming from beyond me. And it tells me to do something that actually sounds like kind of outlandish. Like, for example, this series in itself, I was told to do this almost 2.5 years ago. And I was like, no way, like, I can't do this. And more, it actually wouldn't leave me alone. And it kept giving me like literal directions. And, and I think that's a lot of it is being receptive and listening and thinking, like, being curious, right? Like, well, what if, or what, maybe it gives you the name of your business and you don't even know what the business is about, but run with it, right? Like, write it down, meditate on it.
Yes, take action in some way. And I do think that, well, I know that in these more recently, in the last year or two especially, we're going to be called in these visionary states to do things that feel really, really scary, that take us way outside of our comfort zone, because the world needs massive, major change right now. So we're receiving these instructions, and I even have chills just talking about this because it feels so true, right? We're receiving these instructions and we are meant to receive them and go and take action. So that's probably a second good point to this whole story is whatever you receive, trust it and take action, even if it feels really scary, even if it's way outside of your comfort zone. Because then when you do that, when you respond in that way, the synchronicities are going to kick in, the magic is going to kick in, you will be supported and protected, and you'll just be amazed at what all that can happen.
Yes, this is what I talk about with clients constantly. I mean, I make jokes that I'm a business coach, been teaching all the marketing and the traditional easy, I call it the easy stuff that anybody can learn and implement. But this deeper level, like cutting through the fears, listening to your intuition, knowing that, a client says, well, I feel like I really want to talk about, polyamory and alternative relationships. And I'm like, great, but it feels super scary to be going public with that, or talking about psychedelic work, or, I keep getting this hit where I'm like, oh, I actually want to teach a class on manifestation because I actually find it really fun, even though it's not what I do. And it's normal to feel scared, but I completely agree with you that these messages are really here to be listened to and acted upon. And, one of the main reasons I've decided to do this particular conference was that I felt, there's more and more popularity with the growth of, psychedelic work, shamanic practices, breath work, meditation, anything that puts us into these visionary states. Like, I get this through meditation very often where I'm like, oh, wow, that was something that came through. Let me write that down. But, even myself, it took me 8 years to start my first business because I sat on it for 8 years, like not taking action. Even going into coaching, I kept getting, it was all the universe was speaking to me through so many signs. Like, I literally had friends telling me you should be a coach. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know there was such a thing. So, eventually it just happened. And this is, I'd like you to talk next about this, getting into that flow state and kind of cutting the hustle. I've had a couple people mention this. I've experienced this. It's really hard to tell people, like, you have to believe me, this is how it works. Like, I make jokes. I'm like, it's almost like the less work I do, the easier it all is, the more money flows in, the more everything just comes, you know, and it's like, wait a second, we've all been taught completely wrong. So I would love to, you know, hear your experience, because I'm sure you go through this with clients, or people come to you and they're kind of living in the old paradigm that we used to live in, and now they're kind of waking up and seeing like, oh, you know what, like I'm sick of working 24/7 and, you know, no self-care and struggling to make a living or get my business off the ground. You know, how does the work you do, or even the shamanic journeying, help with this kind of, you know, I keep talking about as leaving the old paradigm, stepping into the new one.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked about this. This is so core to what I'm teaching, and to what I feel we are all being called to right now. Because yes, we've been in this old paradigm that is like, go, 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 rush, 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 you know, work really hard. You have to achieve to be worthy of, you know, all of the nonsense. And what is actually true is that when we make time for self-care, and when we create our schedule, whether it's, you know, as an entrepreneur, or choosing how we're going to live our life, even if we have a job, but how are we structuring our time around that job? How are we making sure that we get what we need? That when we're getting what we really need is when the visions can come through to guide us to get to a whole different place. Right. And so, you know, for example, I get, acupuncture treatments every 2 weeks, and shamanic and Reiki healing from my friend every 2 weeks. And if I am doing those things, it makes everything flow in such a beautiful way, right? And if I stop and I get like too busy, right, and I don't go, things start falling off the rails. Like, it's very clear. It's very, very clear. So we can make, like, this is about choice. This is about choice and what we're choosing to do. And it doesn't have to be acupuncture.
Yeah.
It can be a shamanic journeying practice. It can be going out and just sitting by a tree for a half an hour, right? But whatever it is that we know is going to fill us up, got to make space for those things. So yeah, the shamanic journeying is very, very powerful as a guiding way to find out how to get to this flow state. Because when we go into a shamanic journey, we can ask the really, really big questions. You know, so for example, when you go into a journey, you're usually going to call a guide to you, right? And you see what guide shows up, and that it has deep meaning in it, right? And then you're going to open up and see what happens. And are you called to go to the upper world? Or are you called to go to the lower world? And whoever you meet along the way who is there to help you, you can ask the big questions, such as if you're trying to figure out your purpose, you can ask about that, right? Like if you're stuck in a job that you hate and you know you're meant to get out of that job, but you have no idea how to do so, ask, go into a journey, go into a visionary state of your choice, right? And ask the big questions. What am I meant to be doing other than this? The answers will probably very, very much surprise you, right? And also, as if you're an entrepreneur, and as you are planning your business, you know, you may have a deep sense that, okay, for example, I only want to work on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I want to have total self-care and just relaxation time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But you have no idea how to get there. So again, go into a journey and trust what you receive, because the answer that you receive in that space is coming from the earth. It's coming from the cosmos. It's coming from our guides and our ancestors, right? And so trust what you receive. It's going to help you get there. And, you know, again, when we make space for that, when we have that time, like if you have all day Tuesday and all day Thursday, to not have to be hustling, you're going to have incredible insights about what to do with the time that you are working, what new initiatives to launch or not launch. That's a really big decision, right? Like, okay, I'm not going to do this because it's going to take too much of my time and it's not going to be worth it. Those insights and information can come through. So it's so important to make space for that.
I find myself actually prescribing this to clients all the time, you know, and again, I'm like, well, you know, you don't need to learn how to write copy for your email list one more time. You actually need to go on a hike, or take a day off, or go sleep, or, you know, I actually prescribe play a lot, because I find I work with a lot of people who are actually making the transition into entrepreneurship from a traditional job or from corporate or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're just used to the spinning, the constant go, go, go. And I'm like, you know what? Take a day off and just have fun and do nothing that means anything. Just like go, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you say this. And actually, I want to ask a little bit more because, you know, very few people have talked about this, but because I agree with you completely. I moved somewhere where I could have land and be in nature more. And I actually revolve my business. I make jokes. I revolve it around the weather because I'm like, you know what? I want to be outside most of the time. And everything gets done and everything's actually been easier. The more space I have, the more I give to my self-care. You know, I'm very much like you. I do acupuncture every few weeks. If I don't meditate, if I don't exercise. But when you said, you know, you get messages from the earth and your ancestors, you know, I do believe that. And I believe they're all, you know, it's all allies and they're all here to help us, you know, make change or help us, you know, essentially save the earth. But can you talk a little bit more about that? And you know, I do a lot of, you know, what I call prayers with the earth or speaking to the earth, you know, and I do tell clients if they're open, like, look, you can go talk to a tree and ask for help and the tree will give you help. But tell a little bit more about this and, you know, how you work with your clients, you know, with this and what you believe is actually happening here with our ancestors, with the earth, with spirit, with all these different realms.
Yeah, definitely. I love that question. Well, I think so. One of the number one prescription that I give to my clients is to go lay down on the earth. Okay. Just lay down and just relax. Right. So this does a few different things. One is that it's a really big change in perspective because usually we're standing up or sitting up and we're like looking at eye level this way. Right. When you lay down on the earth, you're looking straight up. You're looking at the sky. So then you can receive messages from the birds. You get to see the tops of the trees. You get to see the sky, the clouds, whatever's happening up there. Complete shift of perspective. And that changes more than you would even, you know, think or imagine. The other thing is that the earth is constantly sending us information. You know, as human beings, we're meant to be in deep connection with the earth. Like we're meant to be not with plastic shoes lining the bottoms of our feet. We're meant to be barefoot. Right. So another very powerful thing that you can do is just stand barefoot on the earth. Or if you can be sitting barefoot with your feet and your hand and the palms of your hands on the earth, you're receiving a lot of information. Okay. So this is one of the things besides shamanic journeying that I will advise my clients to do is just to find a spot and sit and be with the earth and see what you receive. And so, you know, that is definitely a big part of how I received my idea for my business, for Sacred Planet, right? Spending a lot of time with the earth, especially for women. You know, this is a whole other topic, but especially for women on their moon time, sit on the earth. You are in a visionary state just at that time of the month, naturally, for those 3 or 4 days. Sit on the earth, you will receive a vision.
Amazing.
And I'm looking this way because this is my outdoor area. If I could show you, it's like so green and beautiful out here. So I'm almost looking there for inspiration, right?
I always.
But yes. But yes. So also you mentioned the ancestors. This was one thing that I learned that was really, really strong, especially when I started shamanic journeying. So I always in my life, I always had some level of anxiety or depression, right? And the postpartum depression that I experienced right after having my daughter, that was one of the very, very worst times. Well, when I started doing the shamanic journeying, one thing that was very, very clear was that suddenly I realized I am constantly surrounded by help and protection, right? Our ancestors, our angels, our spirit animals, right? All surrounding us all the time. We are never alone, right? I had always felt so alone before. That's why I was anxious and depressed. I'm not anymore because I know I am never alone. So every single person listening, you are surrounded by help. You are surrounded by protection. And we can tap into that very easily, whether it's through, you know, any different visionary state, right? Meditation, shamanic journeying, laying down on the earth. And again, we need to be asking these guides and ancestors and protectors the big questions because they want to help us. They want us to get on track with our purpose. They want us to go out and take action and have the courage, feel strong enough, have the courage to take action so that we can change the entire trajectory of human beings on the planet. And this information, it's just constantly flowing into us. Like when we tune in, we're getting signs and synchronicities and information and messages at all moments.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
and they make it very clear too.
get very clear. Yeah. And if we're not getting the message, they'll tell us in stronger and stronger ways.
Then they'll really make it clear. I make jokes. I'm like, I have gone through some really deep stuff in the past where I was like, okay, I think I get the message, you know?
Yes.
The year it was 2013 or 14 or so, where it was the year where the universe was telling me to slow down. And it was literally like, it got to the point where my lung, like I had this issue with my lung and I had to go to the ER. And I was actually like trying to not go in the ambulance, but they were forcing me in. And I was like kind of arguing with them. And the girl was like, she says to me in this like New York attitude, she's like, girl, you need to slow down. And I was like, okay, I think I get it now. She's like the 15th person that's told me this in the last like year.
Like, okay,
and the turtle came to me that year. Like the turtles were everywhere. I mean, it was like, I was like, oh, I should probably slow down.
Yeah.
But I love that you bring this up. I mean, because it's so important. And again, I think it's all about, you know, having the time, having the space, getting grounded, getting in touch with the earth so that you can listen, you know, slowing down. I feel like this is, you know, when you said you lived with anxiety and depression, I'm like, and you felt alone. I mean, I think this is a whole Western society's problem. You know, there is this general, you know, underlying feeling of, you know, isolation, aloneness, even though we're the most connected we've ever been. But, you know, essentially it's like people can be on social media and feel even more alone.
Even more isolated.
Yeah. And it's like these practices are what's actually getting us in touch with the truth of, you know, we're never alone. Yes. So actually what you just said once, you know, I want to talk about this next thing. So what do you think, you know, why do you think it's important for the future of the planet that one is really not only in touch with their purpose, but actually acting on it? Because, you know, again, me and you both believe the same thing. Like that's why the series is existing, is I do believe that we all need to come into our purpose in some form or another, you know, and have to be heart-centered. And this is actually what will change the planet. But talk a little bit more about this. Like, why do you think it's important? And what do you think it is, you know, why is it happening right now? Like, why are people feeling the call towards, you know, like, oh, something's misaligned and I'm feeling like I need to do something with more meaning, or I'm being pulled in this direction?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so obviously we're living in critical times, you know, and but really on every level, like politically, environmentally, educationally for our children. Mm-hmm. So many of our systems and structures are in crisis right now, right? And so we're feeling this in a very visceral way, not only through watching the 5 o'clock news, if we still watch the 5 o'clock news, but also just like, you know, we know in our hearts that things are way off track, right? And so we're feeling this call more strongly than ever before. And I feel like the call has always been there. It's certainly intensifying, right? But I feel like, as I said, the earth and the cosmos and our ancestors have been communicating with us for a long, long, long time. But something's happening inside of us right now. I think we're getting cracked open to where, like, we cannot ignore that anymore. So many people are in a job right now and just knowing, like, this is not where I'm supposed to be every day. I need to be doing something completely different. And it's to a point where we cannot ignore it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we've got to take action. And as I said earlier, even if it's terrifying, especially if it's terrifying, like if there's something that you know you're being called to do and it just scares the hell out of you, right? Like it's the scariest thing you can think of doing. You've got to do that exact thing. You have to. Like, you know, you're being called to that. And when we do what we're afraid of, right, when we take action in a way that takes us outside of our comfort zone, what happens is it creates an entirely new experience for us, right? Because before we take that action, where we're still sitting inside of our comfort zone, our ego and our subconscious mind are saying, no, don't do that. It's not familiar. We might not survive, right? And then once we do it and we find out, oh my gosh, I survived. And what's even more important, I feel amazing. I have a whole new level of confidence because I did this thing I never thought I could do. like it boosts you way up here, and then you're able to take the next step and the next step and the next step. So this is one of my key like soapbox areas is you've got to do what you're terrified to do. It's really, really important right now. It's a key way that we can take action that's going to make a really big difference, right? It's like, I think we've, like small steps are good. Sometimes we need to take small steps, but I feel like collectively right now we're being called to jump off of cliffs and take really big steps and do things that we have never done before. And the bigger picture of this is that the earth needs us. The future of all of the species, all of the beings, including our own children and grandchildren, need us right now. And when we are listening and tuning into our purpose and taking action in alignment with that, then what the natural result of that is we're going to be offering our highest contribution to the future of the world. So that is my invitation to everybody. Like, step into your highest contribution because it is there. It is available to you. Your highest self is calling out for you to do this. The earth and the cosmos are calling out for you to do this. One more thing that's really important is that as entrepreneurs, for anyone who's listening who is an entrepreneur or is being called to become an entrepreneur, you know, we have the potential to shift the entire economic structure on our planet away from huge greedy corporations and political machines and toward people like you and me doing this very purpose-based, spirit-driven work. And let the money flow through there so that we can do all the good that we want to do in the world and donate to the causes that are doing more and more good, right? It's huge what's happening right now. I mean, it is a revolution what is happening right now, especially with entrepreneurship. So,
I agree completely. And it's so well said. And and the thing is, when you say step into fear, do what's scary. And actually, it's like more important to do what feels scary. I always tell people, you know what, it's always scary, but it feels great afterwards, and it gets, I make jokes that it gets a little easier, even if it's a new level of fear. But now I know when I'm scared to do something, I'm like, wow, okay, I've done this before. I've survived before. And you know what? Every time I do something that feels scary, things turn out great. And, once you start listening and paying attention to all the support that's coming in, all the signs, all the synchronicities, you're like, oh, okay. All I have to do is listen to this calling, listen to the path, listen to all those messages and just do them, follow. And I agree, this is so much more beyond, like what I do for a living and how I make my money. It's so much more beyond that. And I'm very much like one of these people that's like, there's an urgency. Like it's an urgency because I feel like things are really getting interesting and who knows what's going to happen, but it's at a critical time where we need to step it up. We need to start making change because these models, these systems, they haven't been working and they're actually destroying the whole planet. So, and I agree, it's such an interesting and exciting time to be alive. It's such a gift to be alive right now at this time in human history. And it's like, well, how are you going to live it, right? It's our one incarnation in this lifetime. And how do you want to go forward with it? So I love what you're bringing. Your message is so great. So tell people a little bit more about this new online course, the 5-week, The Space Between Dreaming and Awake, an adventure into deep connection with your purpose and power through accessing the imaginal realms. That sounds fun and amazing. Like, I want to do that one.
Yes, it's very magical, very, very fun. So yeah, it's really a deep dive into the imaginal, into the dream time, into shamanic journeying. It's a 5-week journey where we're going to go really, really deeply into how to connect with all of the unseen that is surrounding us and all of this guidance and protection and information that wants to come through, how to tap into the synchronicities, how to connect much more deeply with nature and know that we are not just observing what's around us, but we're being observed at all times, right? By the trees, the animals. So it's really powerful. And then by the end of the course, you will have created a 1-year action plan for, like we were talking about, how you're going to take action toward your purpose. And so we do this in a really beautiful, organic way to create that action plan. And you walk away with that at the end, and you will have that as your guide for the upcoming year.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. And then I know that works. And I actually think it's very important work to be doing, have a guide follow it, tap into the synchronicities. You know, it's like, and the more you notice, the more you get them, it seems too. So
Definitely.
wonderful. And so tell people a little bit more where they can find you. And I know they can grab your other 5-week course as a free gift, the Learning to Fly, Transcend Fear, and Step into Your Soul's Mission. That's very important. And yeah, where else can they find you, and what else do you offer over the next, 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, well, my website, so you can Google me. If you look up Sacred Planet, you will find me there. My website URL is We Are Sacred Planet, because it's very much a community, global community. wearesacredplanet.com. Yeah, and one really exciting thing that I'm offering that's it just started beginning of October, is a program that I call the Sacred Feminine Business Mastermind. And we're going to have so much fun. It is all about combining our connection with spirit and the imaginal and shamanic practices, along with our entrepreneurship and the practical steps of marketing. How can we do marketing in a beautiful, sacred feminine, aligned with spirit kind of a way, and bring in maximum abundance to support our purpose, right? So that's one new thing I have going on.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds really wonderful. I love that you're teaching this. Jocelyn, thank you so much for being with us. This was really amazing. And I'm so glad we got to talk about, accessing these altered states to help us and guide us. And, we don't need the psychedelics. We don't really need the sacred medicines, even though they're beautiful. And I am really glad we got to talk about this perspective from you. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Beth. This was lots of fun to talk with you today.
Thank you. And everybody, just join us tomorrow for more interviews on psychedelics, sacred medicines, and purpose, free virtual conference, and I'll see you there.